Next ahead, we're going to have Itiel Shwartz. I think the previous talk is really connected to it. Hi, Itiel. What's up?
Hey, pleasure to be here.
You're going to talk to us about the journey you had starting your own company, Komodor.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Sorry about that. So I'll just get started.
Yeah, take it away.
Can you view my screen? Like I shared it? But
Not yet. Just a sec. Here you go.
Okay, great. Thank you. So
enjoy.
Second. Thank you. So hello, everyone. Thank you. And my name is Itiel Shwartz. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Komodor. We are a startup building the first Kubernetes native troubleshooting platform. I'm a big believer in dev empowerment and basically moving fast. And in my previous life, I worked for eBay, Forter, and Rookout. I have a lot of backend and infra experience, basically what you can call like a DevOps. And I really like Kubernetes. So what are we going to talk to do today? So we're going to start with where was Komodor like last year, and when we started the company, we needed to build a product from the ground up. I'll walk you through like the first decision we needed to take, and what of them turned out to be a good decision and what not so good. We'll talk about CICD, which tools are you using and why. Then I'm going to jump to monitoring, a couple of things worth mentioning, and then wrapping it up. Basically, if you are building a new product, a new company, a subsystem in your company, I think this talk will be very, can give you really good insight regarding the things that it's worth considering and the different trade-off between different tools. So like how did the journey start? So we started building the company last year. It was clear to us that we want to use industry best practices. We'll share the things that we learned and how and why. And I would say our main goal was quite simple. I think like a lot of young startups or a lot of like small products inside big companies, we wanted to move fast and build the best product that we can. So the first decision that we needed to take was like Kubernetes versus serverless. So I know it's a very heated decision, and we had some very interesting talks on the first day of the company, because basically we had me, Ben, the founder, and 2 engineers that joined us from day one. Kubernetes won over serverless, mainly because it felt to us it will be a lot easier to run locally, to test and troubleshoot, and basically to manage dependencies between different microservices. We didn't really need super fast scaling or something like that, where Lambda really excel or serverless excel. The thing that was really important to us is to think about the day-to-day working and day-to-day troubleshoot, not the time it gets to get started, because I think Lambda would have been like faster, like getting your first server on the air. But we thought like the maintenance and the toil later will be a big disadvantage. I will say that like our team, we all know Kubernetes quite well, and our product is Kubernetes, like is dedicated for Kubernetes users. So it is a bit tricky, but I think for a small company, it might be debatable. And I think that Kubernetes overall gives you a better and easier way to manage things rather than serverless. The second decision that we need to take was microservice versus monolith. So I know like everyone is talking about microservices and how great it is, and it lets you to scale to infinity. And as your team grow, there are no problems. So we started using microservices at first. After like 10 or 15 microservices, it felt like it's too much to handle and to manage. So basically, we created one big service. I won't call it like a monolith, but one big service. It was too big, so we did split it up. And now we are in a process of like migrating or merging like the existing legacy microservices into one or two microservices. And our goal is to have 2 or 3 services. And basically, like the main problems with the microservices was running locally, testing, and the dependency between different microservices, because you update one microservice and then you need to update like 2 or 3 more. And it's just tedious, like we're doing like the day-to-day working. I think that if we would invest more time building like the right set of tools, it could have been better. but we didn't really wanted to spend time on those decisions. The third decision was Monorepo versus Multirepo. I had like a lot of experience working with multi-repos. Basically, the biggest issue is syncing dependencies in a multi-repo environment. Think about like you have a backend and a front end, and they have some, I don't know, GraphQL schema between them. So if you update one, you might need to update the other, and then a lot of companies are building their own automation tools in order to solve it and to streamline the process. Basically, in Komodor, you have everything in one single dir, in one single repository. Each microservice is its own dir, and we have one shared directory. The deployment part is also part of the repo and part of each of the microservices, and the deployment is done via umbrella chart. So everything is basically deployed together. I think Monorepo is super cool and the right choice for a small team. We did that work in order for us to be able to split it later on if we will need it, but it gives you a lot of like very, very integrated system without the need to build in this integration using external tools or GitHub Actions or things like that. Okay, so this was like the first decision that we took in Komodor, and now let's talk a little bit about CICD. So again, we're a small company. What we try to do is commit, merge, and deploy, and having the features as fast as we can into productions. We spent a lot of time removing the barriers to move from from development to production. I can say that it was a time waster at the start, like making sure all of the infra works as expected, and we did do a couple of iterations on that. But overall, it gives you a very agile team. And because each developer is responsible for pushing to production, he's also responsible for basically making sure that when things go wrong, he's on top of that and he can manage the issue. So I really recommend it, like as a state of mind. And like the interesting thing that we done in this area is using Docker to the extreme. So we use Docker multi-stage build, and for those of you who don't know it, we have like the base image, then we have a test phase, and then we have like the finalized image. And basically, the testing is done via Docker build, and this gives you like the ability to utilize the caching capabilities of Docker across builds and across like different branches. We started with Circle CI as it was our go-to tool. We already knew it. It was super easy to get started. As we had more and more microservices, it was kind of a bummer, like writing YAMLs. So we moved to BuildKite, which is like a new CICD tool. Basically, they don't allow you to host like the agent on their site. You must like host it by yourself. But it helped us like reduce the build and deploy time from 6 minutes in Circle CI to less than 1 minute, basically because better Docker caching. It's a lot cheaper, and we use Python instead of YAMLs, so super cool. Instead of writing like 500 YAML lines of code or YAML code, we ended up having like 30 lines of Python. So if you can, Docker can really simplify a lot of things, and you should use it. And also don't be afraid to experiment with new tools. It might really pay off. We were a little bit skeptical with BuildKite at first, and it crashed for like the first few tries we gave it. But overall, we're super happy with it at the moment, and we don't experience any issues with that. The other cool thing that you are big believers is feature flags, and more specifically, launch darkly. We wanted the ability to open features without the need to go over like the CICD, and basically to go and have open only for a specific segment. So for each front end new feature, basically we open it up only for the Komodor tenant, and we see the changes for us, and then we open it for other customers. And again, it allows us to deploy things faster to production. And like I said, like on the first slide, production is the only place that really counts, and we try to remove the barriers moving to production. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about monitoring. And we had like very, very good monitoring right from the start. The main reason is not only like it has some things to do with your business reputation and making sure you're always up and customers can log in and see the functionality that you promised them and that they are paying on. It saves you a lot of time troubleshooting. And our goal is when we have an incident, when we have an issue, when we have a customer that is complaining, we have the right tool for the job to understand very fast what's the issue and what we can do to prevent it for next times. So basically, it allows you to know that you have problems before the customers, and it's a lot harder to add monitoring like in retrospect phases, like making sure you have it baked in from the ground up. And I will say again, the main reason is the fact that it saves a lot of time when you are troubleshooting, which is a lot of the developer and DevOps time. So the main tool that we are currently using is Datadock. We use it both as an APM, as an infra monitoring, and as a testing tool. It works seamlessly with our stack, which is AWS, Kubernetes, and also Python and TypeScript for the APM parts, and also Golang. We are extending like the base capabilities. We send like custom metrics or custom traces using the Datadock SDK. It allows us to create really simple monitors and custom alerts, and the synthetic and browser and API testing allows us also to mock user behavior on top of the Komodor website, and basically allows us to make sure everything is working as expected. I will say that there are like very good open source, and you can use like Prometheus, Grafana, and Jaeger in order to achieve the same capabilities. We rather like pay the money and not really go into the making sure like hosting everything by ourselves. But it is like a very good stack, Prometheus, Grafana, and Jaeger. The other tool that we are heavily using is Logzio. Basically, it's a hosted Kibana. Kibana and Lucene are pretty much the standard when it comes to logs aggregation and searching logs. It has a native Kubernetes integration. It's easy to configure new alerts via Logzio. And we prefer, like, again, paying money instead of holding our own infra. I will say in this space that you have CoreLogix and Splunk and Loki, or hosting like Kibana by yourself. If you are hosting like Kibana on Kubernetes, it's not that hard, but it does require like expertise, time, and we just prefer like paying other people to solve all of these issues for us. And before I go like to other tools, I will also say that we are using LogRocket for like front-end monitoring. We are using Bugsnag to catch exceptions, and we use OpsGenie to alert us when things go wrong. So there is a very big stack of tools that we are using to make sure like we are aligned on the production side. A little bit about like the culture, or how I see like building a new technology or a new like service from the ground up. It's hard. Like you will make mistakes. And I think the most important thing to do is to learn from them and basically listen to the team. And I try to ask my team as much as possible what are the biggest time spender or what we can do to improve. Because let's say that your build time is now 10 minutes instead of 1 minute. It basically means that every time someone is waiting like to make sure that his code is running properly and it passed all of the tests, he go to like drink some coffee or tea or something like that. And if it was only 1 minute, you will just look at the screen and wait for it to finish. So you need to find those bottlenecks, those time consumers, and try to eliminate them as fast as you can. I will say that even it's hard, it's super fun, like choosing the technology that you want. So it was super fun experience, and we're still building and improving the product. So it's super fun. Another like not so orthodox tool that we are using is Hasura, which is basically Postgres plus GraphQL. It acts as the backend on top of Postgres, like let's call it like serverless backend. It transforms SQL schema to GraphQL, queues and mutation. It handles the authentication part, and also the fact that when we add a new column to the database, then we can just use it using like the updated GraphQL schema. And this way, we have the backend that only know Postgres, and we have the front end that only knows Hasura and GraphQL. and it's a really great separation of concerns. We were a little bit skeptical at first, like, will it work? Like, I don't really believe in no code, but so far it works quite well for us, and I really recommend like checking this tool out. So to wrap things up, I will say that it's super easy building a new service, a new server, like deploying to Kubernetes, deploying Lambda. You read like a 5-minute tutorial or a video on YouTube, and you have your service up and running with a load balancer. It is super easy shooting yourself in the leg and making like the wrong decisions. And even for us, we really tried making sure like we are like keeping up with the best practices. Like we had a lot of microservices. We did spend a lot of time on the CICD, and you must be on top of it and constantly like question your current state. Try to talk with people you trust and read real life stories. Because like all tools, obviously they are saying they are the best and they will solve all of your problems. And a lot of the times, even when you experiment like for 5 minutes with one of those tools, you see they don't really live up to the hype and for everything like they had in the marketing brochure. So be like, don't trust like marketing materials. And that being said, I wrap up, and I will say like I didn't mention Komodor, which we are using internally, and it basically allows you to troubleshoot Kubernetes easier, and we are also hiring. And that's pretty much about our journey in the cloud native. Feel free to ask questions, because we had a lot of hard decisions that we needed to make in order to make sure everything works as expected. Back to you.
Thanks, Itiel. It sounds very interesting. You had quite a journey here, so thanks a lot. Actually, your talk is really, thanks.